What makes you, well, you? Today, we're going to deconstruct something pretty incredible. It's a personal blueprint, a map of an identity that one person has spent literally decades building. We're going to see how he's taken hard data, deep personal beliefs, and even a little bit of mythology to define himself.
Okay, so every complex story has to start somewhere, right? And this one starts with something pretty familiar. Our subject is a 34-year-old dad from Norway. Seems normal enough, but trust me, don't get too comfortable because what we're about to see goes way, way deeper.
And here's where it starts to get really interesting. On one hand, you've got these analytical labels, INTP, Enneagram 8W7, and on the other, he calls himself a dragon druid and a master manifester. And then, just to keep it all real, he's a poor swimmer who's afraid of deep water. You see the puzzle here? That's what we're going to unpack. So let's start with foundations. We're going to look at the analytical side of things first, the frameworks he uses to understand himself, and the personal history that really shaped his worldview. What's so wild is that he uses this whole toolkit of systems to map out his own mind. He sees himself as an INTP, the logician, which totally points to a love of systems and logic. But he's also an Enneagram 8W7, the maverick. That suggests a really powerful, assertive, kind of go-getter side. And it doesn't stop there. He brings in things like tritotype and human design to get even more specific. It all paints a picture of a fiercely independent, deeply analytical, and strategic thinker. Now, this timeline of his beliefs is absolutely key to understanding him. He starts off with religion, but then, at 15, he makes a hard pivot to science, which, is a classic move for a logician type. But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. A decade later, he has what he calls a spiritual awakening, and that's the spark that ignites this incredible blend of the analytical and the mystical that we see in him today. Okay, so we've moved from the mind, and now we're zooming out, way out, to the cosmos. This next layer of his identity is what he calls his cosmic signature, using astrology and numerology to figure out his place in the universe. So his main astrological placements give us a quick snapshot. His sun in Aquarius points to this innovative, intellectual core. His moon in Scorpio suggests a really deep, intense emotional world hiding under the surface. And his Leo ascendant, that's the charismatic, confident vibe he puts out into the world. But honestly, this is just scratching the surface. Now listen to this, because this is probably the most important part of his entire chart. He has a massive concentration of energy. We're talking 8 planetary bodies, all stacked up in the sign of Capricorn. In astrology, that's called a stellium, and it acts like a laser beam, focusing all that power on one specific part of his personality. And this right here tells you exactly what that laser beam is focused on. The Capricorn archetype is all about structure, discipline, and mastery. Think of a master craftsman, just patiently working for years and years towards a goal. That energy is the absolute bedrock of the identity he's building. And check it out, this whole builder theme pops right back up in his numerology. His life path number is 4, which is the number of stability, process, and yeah, you guessed it, hard work. It's all about building things that last. You're starting to see a pattern here, right? So we've got all these different layers. The psychological data, the personal history, this cosmic map. So what does he do with it all? How does he put it all together into one single identity? Well, he tells us straight up. He doesn't just collect these facts like trading cards. He weaves them into a personal myth. He calls himself a psychic wizard dragon druid. And for him, these aren't just fantasy titles. No way. These are designations that he feels he's earned, representing the sum of everything he's learned and experienced. And if you're wondering about the work he's put in to earn those titles, he gives us a number: over 20,000 hours of self-study. To put that in perspective for you, that's like working a full-time job for 10 straight years. It's just an incredible commitment to mastery and self-discovery. Okay, this slide for me is the most fascinating part of this whole thing. On one side, you have the truly extraordinary. He claims to have 150 psychic abilities, speaks 6 languages, he's a musician and author. But then look at the other side, the deeply human stuff. He's afraid of spiders and faints at the sight of blood. This is what makes it so real. It's not a list of superpowers, it's a portrait of a whole person, flaws and all. So after building this insanely detailed map of himself, he does something pretty brave. He turns it outward and asks the world a question. This was his original request. He put all this info out there for anyone to see and basically said, analyze me, tell me what you think, and don't hold back. He's basically crowdsourcing the interpretation of his own life.
But, as fascinating as this one guy's story is, maybe we're missing the point if we only focus on him. Maybe the real value of a blueprint like this isn't just to analyze its owner.
And that really brings us to the final question. This isn't just about one man from Norway. It's a powerful example of how we all construct our own identities, whether we realize it or not. It forces us to ask ourselves, what are the pieces of my own identity? What systems or stories do I use to define myself? So I'll leave you with this. What's in your blueprint?